after the rain. Jesus, 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 let all heaven and earth proclaim. Kings and kingdoms will all pass away, but there's something about that name. That wasn't bad, Sam. Let's do 316. Haven of Rest. And then we'll do one more song right after that.
Is it one page?
Yes, it is. It is one page. My soul burdened with sin and distressed, till I heard a sweet voice saying, make me your choice, and I entered the haven of rest. I've anchored my soul in the haven of rest. I'll sail the wide seas no more. The tempest may sweep o'er the wild stormy deep. In Jesus I'm safe evermore. I yielded myself tender, and the haven of rest is my Lord. I've anchored my soul in the haven of rest. I'll sail the wide seas no more. The tempest may sweep o'er the wild stormy deep. In Jesus I'm safe evermore. The song of my soul since the Lord made me whole has been the old story so blessed of Jesus who'll save whosoever will have a home in the haven of rest. I've anchored my soul in the haven of rest. I'll sail the wide seas no more. Tempest may sweep o'er the wild stormy deep. In Jesus I am safe. Okay. I love to tell the story of unseen things above, of Jesus and his glory, of Jesus and his love. I love you. It satisfies my longings as nothing else can do. I love to tell the story, 'twill be my theme in glory, to tell the old story of Jesus and his love. I love to tell the story, more wonderful it seems than all the golden fancies of all our golden dreams. I love to tell the story, it did so much for me. Tell it now tell to thee. I love to tell the story. 'Twill be my theme and glory to tell the old story of Jesus and his love. I love to tell the story. 'Tis pleasant to repeat what seems each time I tell it more wonderfully sweet. I love to tell the story, for some have never heard the message of salvation from God's own holy word. I love to tell the story. 'Twill be my theme and glory to tell the old story of Jesus and his love. I love to tell the story for those who know it best. And when in scenes of glory I sing the new song, 'twill be the old story that I have loved so long. I love to tell the story. 'Twill be my theme and glory to tell the old story of Jesus and his love. Amen. Great singing.
All right, two places. So we're going to be in Ecclesiastes this morning. But before we get there, James has something to say that kind of introduces what we're going to talk about. Ecclesiastes just deals with life as it is here. And some of it's sobering, some of it's kind of reality. One thing that, let me give you two things are important about this book, and we're not going to go over the whole book. I just want to cover the kind of the first part of it. But two things are really important in this. The book of Ecclesiastes is a sermon that Solomon preached at some point in time. These speeches like the president gives or something, it might have been that, but it's recorded, and so it's kind of called a sermon. Probably towards the end of his life, he talks about experimenting with all kinds of things and just, trying to figure out what lasts, what doesn't last, what's meaningful, what's not meaningful, what is, kind of what is the point of things, which I think is probably a pretty relevant perspective that you and I really need to practice wisdom. The second thing it does, it disciplines. It has a disciplining effect on our theology. What I mean by that is, you guys, we've all been, and we've said it, I believe the Bible. And even there's doctrinal statements probably in every single church across Beeville and across Texas about, we believe the 66 books of the Bible. These are all, inspired. Curious in all of that is we only end up talking about a few books of the Bible. Stick with John and Romans and Galatians and stuff like that, Matthew, stuff like that. But to say that we believe the whole Bible, there's a lot of the Bible that we just don't even seem to know exists. For instance, if I ask you, what's your take on Song of Solomon? Do you believe Song of Solomon? You might say, "What? Yeah, I believe it. What's it about? I don't know." And I would say probably the same thing. But that's the idea. And so when you come across things that are just not, we've made statements about these things without actually confronting them or dealing with them, when we go back and confront like a book like Ecclesiastes or even Song of Solomon, but just some of these obscure things, area under our theology. Like we're saying the Bible is consistent in all places, and then we can find some places where, I don't know how that necessarily fits. And so if it's consistent, let's figure out how it fits. And what I mean is that it's going to hold our professions accountable. Like when we say, I believe the Bible, okay, well, here's a part of the Bible that maybe we need to figure out how does it actually fit in with everything else that we say we're believing. And Ecclesiastes is one of those. I would say Song of Solomon. There's instances in the Old Testament where it's just like, I don't even know what's happening. You guys probably, that describes fearing God, keeping his commandments. He'll come to those conclusions, but you're not going to get a lot of Pauline, quote unquote, necessarily Pauline doctrine. All of these opportunities before him, and has the ability to kind of test his theories however he wants to, because he has all these resources, and then put these philosophies of life to the test, and then journal and document what he's found out about what life is like and what it is that we're all kind of chasing and trying to achieve. And he kind of sits at the top of the pile and says, well, I've got it. Let me tell you what it amounts to and what all this is about. And so this is what Ecclesiastes is. So, but there is, interestingly enough, a few places in the New Testament where Ecclesiastes is discussed and some of the ideas are discussed. For instance, I told you James. Look in James chapter 4, practical as Solomon is. And so James says things like this. James chapter 4 and verse 13. He says, go to now, ye that say, today or tomorrow we will go into such a city, continue there a year, buy and sell and get gain. So it's not bad to have plans, but before you get ahead of yourself, let's think about this. You got these plans and how productive you're going to be in the future. Let's consider. Verse 14, whereas ye know not what shall be on the morrow. What is your life? It's even a vapor that appeareth for a little time and then vanisheth away, that's everybody's life. We're all dealing with the kind of temporariness of these lives here. That's pretty harsh, just kind of bragging about what you're going to do. And then he says this, therefore, to him that knoweth to do good and doeth it not, to him it is sin. And the way James puts that is, you don't have enough time in life to experiment with evil. So if you know what to do, that's what you're supposed to do. That's the decision to make. If you know to do good and you abandon that, I mean, it's a real simple thought, but if you know to do that, that's the thing to do. And the idea is you don't have enough time to experiment with evil things and check it out and, maybe I'll do the good thing or maybe I'll do the bad thing and all that. James says your life is a vapor, your life happens quick, and when you know and figure out the good thing to do, that's the decision to make. And it's based on the brevity of your life. And the way this breaks down, the book breaks down 4 big parts. Chapters 1 and 2 are one chunk. And you'll notice these chunks of thought kind of end the same way. They're all kind of end with, essentially, there's nothing better for man that he should eat and drink and kind of enjoy his labor, things like that. They'll end with phrases like that. So Ecclesiastes chapters 1 and 2, you've got this experimentation where Solomon tries stuff out. He gives you kind of a rundown of what's going to happen in verses 1 through 11, but then he starts explaining some things he's tried out and how it worked out. Chapters 3 through 5 deal with opposites, or why is this fool in charge of this business? Why is this fool in charge of government? Or why is this person, why is this wicked person running this operation? And so he'll say, I've observed these things where you would think justice is supposed to sit. It's hard to make sense of it. And so he'll go through these opposites. He'll also deal with seasons that are opposite. He'll say like, well, there's a time to live and there's a time to kill. That's opposite ends of the spectrum here, but he says everything kind of has its time. It all has, there's these seasonal things as we're going through this new season here with fall coming in. Chapters 6 through 8, he starts to deal with moralizations. Like this thing is better. Like if you have these choices, make everything work out, but here's something better. Here's a better way of doing this. Paul will even do that. He'll say something like, in Corinthians, he'll go through all of these gifts, and you guys do this, and you do that, and you do that, but let me show you a better way of doing it. And then chapters 9 through 12 in Ecclesiastes, just these observations. He'll talk about old age. He'll talk about what is the point of all of this? Why did I bring any of this up anyway? And so it's really one sermon, kind of broken down into 4 big chunks. We're just going to take the first part of it this morning, but remember 2 things. Solomon is going to give you perspective that will help give you a way of dealing with reality in a wise way. Now that you're hitting this resistance, now you've met with reality. So he's going to give you the perspective that gives you wisdom, and then he's going to deal with things that are going to help discipline your theology. Like, how do I think about God? How do I think about the Bible? What is the Bible telling me to do with my life? And things like that. How should I observe things? How should I think about things? How should I think about God and his work in life and things like that? So it's going to help discipline our theology like the disciples. He doesn't exactly talk like the apostles. And so, but he's in the Bible, and we believe the Bible, and so what is he saying? What's the truth being talked about, or what's the thing being talked about here? So chapters 1 and 2, this is kind of one chunk here, the first series of thoughts here. And really verses 1 through 11 deal with cycles in life. The world seems to be anchored in cycles, and it's you can say it's just going in circles, and that's not always bad. That's not necessarily a bad thing. Rain, evaporation, clouds, back to rain. That's a cycle. That's a water cycle that he's going to talk about. The wind cycles, that's not an evil thing. This is the way wind goes. It goes in circles. It comes from the north, the south, the east, the west, and it just blows around, and it does that continuously. And Solomon talks about that. The bigger point is life is anchored in all these cycles for the most part. And so let's read a few of these verses. Starting in Ecclesiastes chapter 1, look in verse 3. You take it under the sun. One generation passeth away, another generation cometh, but the earth abideth forever. Now that's not a scientific statement. This is, and really, we got to be careful about some of the statements like this, because I feel like I don't just feel like it, I've heard this and probably even taught it at some point in time. But sometimes statements are made like this, just like people talk, and they talk in hyperbole, or they talk in their own experience. He's not saying scientifically the earth is just forever, but that's our perception. When he says the earth has basically survived generation after generation, that's what he's talking about. It's just here. It's been around for a long time. People are going to live within its context. The earth abides forever. Verse 5, the sun also ariseth, the sun goeth down, and hasteth to his place where he arose. Again, that's not a literal statement. The sun is not a he, it's just a thing, and it does what it does, but it's a circle. It has the cycle. The wind goes toward the south, turneth about toward the north. So you see what he is talking about, all of these things going in cycles. Verse 7, all the rivers run into the sea, yet the sea is not full. Unto the place from whence the rivers come, thither they return again. So it's the rivers never, it's just constant. That's what he means when he says the work is just never done. It's just constant circuits. Everything is cycles. And you could say, well, it's all going in circles. Yeah, that's kind of the idea. Verse 8, all things are full of labor, man cannot utter it. The eye is not satisfied with seeing, nor the ear filled with hearing. So the eye is constantly chasing something. It never rests and settles and says, okay, I'm done looking. It's always looking for something. Ears, same way. What's the new song? What's the new top 10? Our ears are this way. So it says it's kind of like the work never ends. We kind of have a phrase for that, the rat race kind of thing. But the eyes are this way. Your ears are this way. Never satisfied. Always looking, always chasing. There's a guy, I'm trying to think of his name. Asa Raskin, I think is his name. Anyway, he invented the thing we all do after work or during work. We sit on the phone and that. The never-ending scroll is something, probably a team, but he's the guy credited with it. But it would be you have a full page load, and then you've got to go to another page and things like that. And then he just made the never-ending scroll. Doom scrolling. He didn't realize he was inventing doom scrolling, but that's what he invented. And so that's it's part of our nature. It's part of what we want. And so he just made the technology compatible with what we're all trying to get out of things anyway. We're just looking, listening. Thing under the sun. Is there anything where it may said, see, this is new, it's already been of old time, which was before us. And then there is no remembrance of former things, neither shall there be any remembrance of things that are to come with those that are after. So really verses 1 through 11 and the last couple verses deal with kind of histories going in circles. You think about it, every generation starts over. And they don't start over necessarily in the situation as we did, but you can't take your brain or mind and download it into the baby. The baby grows and learns and is basically starting over. And every generation starts over. That's why teaching is important, because you can't just take your mind and download it to somebody else. You have to teach. That's why it's important. And so every generation, it's a new thing, and so we are, as humans, are limited on how much we can actually do. We can do quite a bit, apparently, but because you're going to have this much time, and the next generation, either they're going to have to be brought up to that, they're going to have to learn this software, they're going to have to learn this technology, they're going to learn all this, but every generation starts fresh. We can't download our minds into the next one, at least not yet. But you can't download your memories into the next generation. They're going to create their own memories. Different technology, but they start over. They may start in a different political climate, but they start over. They may start in a different financial setting, but they start over. And so that's the cycle of history and life and generations. And Solomon just observes these things. He said, this is what humanity is. Kind of the analysis of what he's about to dig into. He gives you these cycles and says, this is what I've watched. This is what I've seen. Verse 13. I gave my heart to seek and to search out by wisdom concerning all things that are done under heaven. And this sore travail hath God given to the sons of man to be exercised therewith. Trying to search out, so he's just like, I'm going to give my heart to all of this business. And he's going to talk about that in chapter 2, which we're not going to read every verse, but we're going to. Keep your heart with all diligence. Out of it are the issues of life. That was something Solomon said in Proverbs. Over and over, he's going to say, I gave my heart to this. I gave my heart to this. I gave my heart to this. And the outcome was, after giving my heart to it, I wasn't satisfied with it. I mean, it was joyful for a while, but it wasn't ultimately, it didn't give me lasting meaning or value, or it didn't make me fulfilled. And so what you find out is, and this is even in the New Testament, what you find out is something Paul would say. And he would say, essentially, godliness with contentment, like where the heart is positioned, where the heart is set, that is the thing. Godliness with contentment is great gain. What he's going to realize is that contentment is a properly placed heart. It's set in the right place. And it's not necessarily set on a thing. It's not necessarily set on the business. It's not necessarily set on the money or it's set on it's balanced. Paul would say it, and I'm trying not to get ahead of myself, but Paul would say it with the Philippians. He would say, look, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. You guys have heard that verse. And you understand the context of it too, which is I've learned to be abased and I've learned to be resources. I've learned to have nothing. I've learned to have everything. He says, I can do all things through Christ, meaning I can handle the balance. I can handle the spectrum of resources here. I've learned to do this. And contentment is a learned thing. It's a properly placing of your heart. So Solomon's going to say, I gave my heart to this. I gave my heart to this. I gave my heart to this. And what am I trying to find? I'm trying to find contentment. I'm trying to find where to settle down. I'm trying to find where to just where's the magic bullet? I mean, where's the end of the rainbow here? He says in verse 14, I've seen all the works that are done under the sun, and behold, all is vanity and vexation of spirit. Just a lot of work, a lot of activity, and it's transient. You have to do it again, and you have to keep doing it, and you have to do it again over. Wanting cannot be numbered. So there's a phrase for that. A bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. It's like, you can't count what you don't have. That's what Solomon says. Daniel told it to a Babylonian king. He said, you've been weighed in the balances and found wanting, meaning you don't have what God's looking for. Be made straight. The crooked way can't be made straight. Things like that. They just are what they are. And we're all living in a time where we're trying to pretend things are something else, Sometimes we're trying to pretend that things aren't what they are. And that makes life really difficult. Solomon said things are just what they are. It's better is the sight of the eyes than the wandering of the heart. Meaning it's better to have the thing in front of me than to just be wishing I had this thing. And so that's the idea. You can't count what's not there. You can't count, I think about things in our lives. You can't count what's not there. Your farmland lacks minerals. Your food lacks vitamins. The desert lacks water. News outlets lack honesty. I mean, you can't count what's not there. It's just not there. I can't pretend there's vitamins. I read an interesting book. It's been a while, but it was kind of along this concept, and it was about the title of it was like something about the number or the concept of zero, like nothing. How do you count nothing? How is that actually a mathematical thing? Or is it a mathematical thing if it doesn't exist? I mean, it's kind of anyway, philosophical thing. But the idea is exactly what Solomon said. Look, everything is what it is, and you can't count what's not there, just like James says. You can't boast about your productivity. So these are limits. These are all the confines we live in. Verse 17, he says, I gave my heart. Let me do 16 first. I communed with my own heart, saying, Lo, I am come to great estate, and have gotten more wisdom than all they that have been before me in Jerusalem. Yet my heart had great experience of wisdom and knowledge. And I gave my heart to know wisdom and to know madness and folly, and I perceived that this also is vexation of spirit. Like the vexing is just it's annoying, it's all of those things. But he says this in this chapter, verse 18. In much wisdom is much grief, and he that increaseth knowledge increaseth sorrow, which is another one of these, I feel like, it's tough in life because, like Paul said, when I will do good, evil is present with me. And the more I learn about life, and the more I flip on the TV, we don't do that anymore now, but you would watch these ads. I'll give you a yesterday example. So I'm listening to a couple of guys talk about persecution in Nigeria. Have y'all heard about Nigeria, what's going on there? I've heard about it for a while. It's getting more national recognition now, but the guy that's in charge in Nigeria, Boko Haram, this guy has terrorized Christians, and he has killed hundreds of thousands of them, from what I understand at this point, in Nigeria. And I mean just disposed of and killed Christians. It's getting to be more known, but the idea is, like Solomon said, the more I learn about what's happening in the world, it's just like, man, this is not good. And it carries with it a burden. It carries with it, okay, well, what is my part to do about this? What do I do about these things? Can I do anything about it? And so Solomon will say, in much wisdom, life, unfortunately. But Solomon's going to retain a lot of his wisdom where people lose it. Like he's going to experiment, and people will lose their minds in some of these places where Solomon doesn't. He's just like this objective observer of things. And so he retains his wisdom. He talks about giving his heart to these things. He talks about increasing in knowledge present. It's like you take 2 steps forward, or 1 step forward and 2 steps back, it feels like sometimes. So after this is the kind of the introduction. Chapter 2, I'm not going to read chapter 2 verse by verse, but Solomon is going to, piece by piece, tell you what he experiments with. He experiments with real estate. He said, I built businesses, I built buildings, I built structures. Why? Because I had the resources to do it, and I could see if building was the thing that makes people happy. Is this the thing that we need to be involved in? And he says, I went and experimented with building buildings and massive structures and real estate because I had the resources to do it. And I found out at the end of the day, it just wasn't the thing. I made great works, verse 4, builded me houses, pools of water. I mean, these massive building projects. Verse 7, I got me servants and maidens, had servants born in my house. I had great possessions of great and small cattle above all that were in Jerusalem before me. I gathered me also silver and gold. This is chapter 2, verse 8. And peculiar treasure of kings in the provinces. I got me men singers. So he's like entertaining himself. I go to the comedy shows. I go to the concerts. I just entertain myself. I surround myself with entertainment and ask, is this the thing? Is this the thing we're after? And he comes to the conclusion, he's going to say, no. And let's make a distinction, though. These things, what he's describing, he's not saying these things were evil to do, or they're not even bad to do. Like, to be entertained is not a bad thing. To build houses is not a bad thing. He's looking for satisfaction and contentment. He's looking for the thing you do one time, and that solves it. That's what he's looking for. And he found out these things, I build and I want to build more. I'm entertained and I want to be entertained more. I experiment with drugs and I want to experiment more. And it's like, these things I don't do them once. I have to keep doing them just like everything else in life. Every other cycle in life. I just have to keep doing it, and it has to be bigger and better and louder and funnier, and I just have to keep doing it. And he says it's not the thing. It's not that it's bad to be entertained. It's just not going to do what I'm looking for it to do. So Solomon experiments with all of this stuff, chapter 2, 1 through 11, the last thing. He says, and I looked on all the works that my hands had wrought and on the labor that I had labored to do, and behold, all was vanity and vexation of spirit, and there was no profit under the sun. I just had to keep doing it. I had to keep building. I had to keep entertaining. I had to keep doing that. So that's the idea. And then he gets to chapter 2, 12 through, we'll say, almost to the end of the chapter here. He's going to say, I've observed in life now that there is one singular event that we all try to avoid in life. There's one thing that that's chasing us, and we're all trying to run away from. And he says, I've observed it with wise people and fools. I've observed it with rich people and poor people. I've observed it with all types of people. And the thing that is the great equalizer, what is it? It's death. He said, the way he says it is, one event happens to them all. You can't buy your way out of it. You can't be poor your way out of it. You can't laugh your way out of it. It's one event happens to everybody. And so death is the great equalizer. Whether man's wise or a fool, he's subject to this great enemy, which is the way we're forced to leave all this work behind to people who can't appreciate the work that went into it to build it. And he said, it's just, this is the state of our existence. This is where I am. Now, I probably should, and it's not necessarily, it all sounds negative, and it is generally negative. But he's going to say this, after my observances and after my experimentation in life, I've come to this conclusion. And here's the conclusion, verse 24, chapter 2, verse 24. There's nothing better for a man than that he should eat and drink, and that he should make his soul enjoy good in his labor. This also I saw that it was from the hand of God. For who can eat? Who else can hasten here with more than I? He's a king. He's billionaire, whatever he is. His resources coming out of his ears. It is good before God. This also is vanity and vexation of spirit. Verse 24 is kind of the conclusion now. This is the idea. And it's not far off from what some of the things that Paul will say. Like Paul will say, like I said, he had learned that godliness with contentment, that was the gain. It wasn't the stuff. It was how do I handle and how do I position my heart within these limits that I live in. How do I position it? What am I supposed to do with this? Because out of the keep thy heart with all diligence, out of it. This is the idea. And so Solomon says, my experience in life says you should learn how to enjoy things. You should learn how to enjoy things. You should learn how to enjoy life. You should learn how to enjoy things in their season. You should understand that seasons come and seasons go. You should not travel down roads that are really, they're not even dead ends. They just lead to more lust or more hunger, or it's like, I got to get more, I got to get more, I got to get more. Learn to temper that stuff. Learn how to enjoy these things. And so Solomon's going to say this kind of thought. After all of these experiences, got 9 through 12, at the end of these chunks, he's going to say, my opinion or my thoughts on life is learn how to enjoy it. And then also, he says at the end, the conclusion of this whole thing, chapter 12, I think 14, 15, 16, somewhere in there, is fear God, keep his commandments. This is the whole thing. This is the whole duty of man. And if you can learn within these human parameters, the cycles that we live in, how do I enjoy this? This doesn't sound necessarily like a Sunday sermon, because we're not talking about Jesus on the cross. We're not talking about the resurrection. We're talking about humanity and how to live as a human. And the reason I hope you're asking these questions is because this is an actual book in the Bible. And this is a book we all say, hey, I believe 66 books in the Bible. Well, this is one of those. And so if your theology can't wrap its mind around what Solomon says about life, you don't understand, we're not understanding what the Bible is saying about life. Does that make sense? Like, this is included in the Bible, these thoughts. And they're good thoughts. He's just observing things in life, how to be content in a world full of cycles and circles and doing things over and over. If you can learn how to be content in that, that's wisdom. If you can learn how to fear God and keep his commandments when you're observing injustice and things that shouldn't be happening. If you can learn how to do that, that's the goal. That's life. That's where life is. And so this is what Solomon's going to say. You got chapters 1 through 2, like I said, 3 through 5, 6 through 8. And he's going to go through these chunks of thought and kind of reiterate, this is what I have found to be true. After my experimentations, after observing contradictions in life, chapter 11 is just like all about really old age. It's like, this is what happens. I can't see anymore. I can't hear anymore. I can't eat the way I did. And it's just like, this is life. This is the human experience. And it kind of takes this, I don't want to say it's not a theological view, but it takes some of this heady stuff and it just brings it down to earth and says, look, contentment has to be found here. It's not we bunker down and then we just like wait till the end because everybody seems to be wanting to do that. That's not life. That's not how life is supposed to be lived. Just over and over these cycles, the daily thing. Learn how to be content. Learn how to fear God, keep his commandments. This is the motivation, the purpose of what God created. Yeah, sin has messed it up. People sinning has messed it up. But this is Solomon's experience, and this is his wisdom that he's going to pass on. And I'll add to that, Solomon is a wise man, according to Jesus. Jesus would say, the queen of the south came to Solomon, who is more wise and more wealthy. The idea is, Solomon's not just some cynic, some grump. He's just observing things that he can observe with the resources he has. And he says, look, this is what life is, and this is how you should live life. Here. Don't bunker down. Be afraid of everything. That's not the way to live. Learn how to be content. Learn how to do what God said to do. Live out the fruit of the Spirit. So he doesn't say fruit of the Spirit, but that's the idea. The commandments of God, long-suffering, kindness, things like that. So that's Ecclesiastes 1 and 2 and kind of the whole thing kind of wrapped up. Do you guys have any questions? Go ahead.
So, talking about just, finding contentment in the things that God gives, whether, you have much or you have little or whatever the case may be, just finding contentment in the Lord himself. Paul kind of deals with that concept a little bit in Romans 1, when he talks about the idolatry of people, how they refuse to honor the Lord and to give thanks. But on the flip side of that, he gives this idea in Romans 14, convictions sometimes, And so he says, one person regards one day above another regards every day alike. Each person must be fully convinced in his own mind. He who observes the day observes it for the Lord, and he who eats does so for the Lord, for he gives thanks to God. And he who does not eat for the Lord, he does not eat and gives thanks to God. For not one of us lives for himself, and not one of us dies for himself. But if we live for the Lord, or if we die for the Lord. Therefore, whether we live or we die, we are the Lord's. And it's just that same idea that Solomon is talking about. It's saying, in all of this, whether you're here or there, whether you're doing this or that, in all of this, that finding contentment is in that recognizing this is from the Lord, this is to the Lord, we give thanks to the Lord. It removes, because in Paul's concept here, it actually removes a lot of the infighting that happens in church. It removes a lot of the infighting because we're no longer arguing about things like that.
Right.
But we're all just kind of living in the same fallen world that Solomon is observing.
Yes.
Each one of us giving thanks to the Lord.
It makes me think of a couple things, like how individual Christianity is like the Lord wants you to be who you are. Like that's not something you're not, but what you are. So when he says stuff like, you regard this day, you regard that day, just be convinced in your mind and don't fight about it. Just you think.
To the Lord, they give
Yes, exactly.
And it's finding that place of contentment amidst different viewpoints. Of
It
the
is.
same fallen world.
That's so many
Always done in
thoughts.
thanksgiving to the Lord.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's good. It's good. It's like we focus on is this the line to cross or not? It's more like focus positively. Is this something you're giving thanks for? Is this something you have gratitude toward the Lord for? Not is this okay? We did the holiday. Were you grateful for the day? Were you grateful for the food? I mean, it's just like we seem to have this fascination with all of the negative and consequences and just bad stuff instead of the opportunity. Like, hey, you know, if you're convinced to do it, do it. Be grateful for it. And
that concept of how to live as a church in that way ties to the conclusion of Solomon, which is finding contentment in fearing the Lord, keeping his commandments, giving thanks to him.
anything else?
Solomon gives a guide to life in many different aspects, of course.
Mm-hmm.
As a parent, I did a Bible study on Song of Songs, and the one thing I got out of it that time was my kids wanted to know, Dad, how am I going to find my mate?
Yeah.
And I said, well, from the book of Song of Songs, Solomon says to follow your passions of your life.
Mm-hmm.
And when you feel content, look beside you and God will have your mate beside you. You know, I can't tell you where that verse is, but out of
That's better advice than the Disney movies.
That's good. Yeah. Follow your passion and then look beside you. That's your people. It's good.
Kind of like what I did. Had this checklist. Mark it off. What did I want? What was I looking for in my mate? Maybe different from the others, but what did I want?
Yeah.
And then I found him.
And then Roy drove up in a vacuum truck and you're.
Yes.
Fit all the boxes.
Yes, yes. You know, I was telling my kids at school, you know, sometimes the funny guy are the one that's, you know, the you're really looking for, and that's what you got to
Yeah.
focus on.
Yep. Absolutely. And that is like we focus on so many of the wrong things. It just leads to dead ends and heartbreak and stuff like that. Good stuff. Anybody else?
I would say the first 10 verses of chapter 3 even go along with the contentment part when he talks about the seasons.
Yeah.
You get right at verse 11 through 13.
Mm-hmm.
Really. I mean, he tells you how to find contentment. He hath made everything beautiful in his time. Also, he hath set the world in their hearts so that no man can find out them, but for a man to rejoice and to do good in his life, and also that every man should eat and drink and enjoy the good of all his labor. It is the gift of God.
Which is contentment. Yeah.
And that's kind of I feel like that's kind of that is how you find contentment.
That's good.
Enjoy life, do good,
What you enjoy
give thanks to God.
Yeah. How dare you enjoy life?
I have a roommate, idle mind is the devil's workshop. And he used to repeatedly tell me that. Remember that an idle mind is the devil's workshop. So it's kind of the concept of, you know,
Mm-hmm.
you're supposed to be diligent about pursuing whatever
Absolutely.
you should be pursuing, not
Yeah.
goofing off.
Yeah. Not diligently goofing off. But you know what's also? It's like diligently trying to find the devil in everything. Like I find that in parts of Christianity. Diligently figure out how to be content. Like how to enjoy this. How do you enjoy this? Yeah, it requires setting up boundaries, I'm sure, but we're not in that mindset. Like, how do I diligently enjoy this? Good stuff. Anything else? Ecclesiastes it's a book. All right, well, let's pray and we'll wrap it up. Father, thank you for this time together. Thank you for these words, this opportunity to open up your words and learn things that we don't really address that often. Maybe understandably so a little bit, but this needs to be introduced, I think, and place to come and open up your words and talk about them. And thank you for making provision and help us, like we just discussed, like Steve said, just diligently enjoy life and be content and do the work of God and participate with you in what you're doing. And I pray all of this in Jesus' name.